We will call the regular assembly meeting to order for April 6, 2026. Mr. Smith, will you lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance of the and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Hall, would you read the land acknowledgement?
Yes, we would like to acknowledge that the city and borough of Juneau is on Tlingit land and wish to honor the indigenous peoples of this land. For more than 10,000 years, Alaska Native people have been and continue to be integral to the well-being of our community. We are grateful to be in this place, a part of this community, and to honor the culture, traditions, and resilience of the Tlingit people. Ganesh Chish.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Madam Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Deputy Mayor Smith,
Here.
Ms. Hughes-Candies,
Here.
Ms. Wall,
Present.
Mr. Kelly,
Here.
Ms. Atkinson,
Here.
Mr. Steininger,
Here.
Ms. Hall,
Here.
Mr. Brooks,
Here.
Madam Mayor.
Here.
Thank you. Quorum is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, we'll go into special order of business, and the first one is a proclamation recognizing Public Service Recognition Week. So, and since this is for all our public service folks, we don't have anybody here, so this one I'll just sit and read. Thank you for everybody for their public service. Whereas Americans are served every single day by public servants at the federal, state, tribal, borough, and city levels, and whereas these unsung heroes do the work that keeps our nation working, and whereas day in and day out, public servants provide the diverse services demanded by the American people of their government with efficiency and integrity, and whereas without these public servants at every level, continuity would be impossible in a democracy that regularly changes its leaders and elected officials, and whereas public servants deliver the promise of a government by and for the people, and whereas public servants educate our children, keep our communities safe, defend our country, deliver our mail, maintain our roads and bridges, and perform countless other essential services, and whereas every single year since 1985, the first full week in May has been set aside as Public Service Recognition Week, a time to thank dedicated public servants from federal, state, tribal, county, and local governments across the country. Now, therefore, I, Beth A. Weldon, Mayor of the City and Borough of Juneau, Alaska, and the City and Borough Assembly do hereby issue this proclamation designating the week of May 3rd through 9th, 2026 as Public Service Recognition Week. I encourage all citizens to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of government employees at all levels. So, thank you, public service.
And Aaron, do you want to join us here?
Ms. Kalwara.
Thank you. So this is a proclamation for National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, which is April 12th through 18th. Whereas each day, members of the public dial 911 for help in emergencies ranging from house fires, vehicle collisions, heart attacks, search and rescues, violent crimes, burglaries, and missing children. And whereas the people who answer these calls for help with the words 911, where is your emergency, work quickly under pressure to gather the essential information and then dispatch the appropriate response. And because emergencies occur around the clock, the community can rely on the vigilance and preparedness of these individuals 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And whereas their actions as first responders can make the difference between life and death as they talk distress callers through cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, reassure panic crime victims, support hysterical callers, and often make difficult split-second decisions to help those in need. And whereas seldom seen, public safety telecommunicators are more than a calm and reassuring voice on the other end of the phone. They're acknowledgeable and skilled individuals who work closely with firefighters, medics, and police personnel. And whereas every year since 1994, the second week in April is designated as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, and public safety telecommunicators, dispatch and call takers nationwide are honored, celebrated, and thanked for their dedication in serving the public and for their commitment to their profession that strives to create a better and safer world. Whereas the City and Borough of Juneau Police and Fire Communications Center staff are highly dedicated and work daily to protect and promote public safety, handling more than 35,000 emergency and non-emergency calls for service each year. You're now, therefore, I, on behalf of Beth A. Weldon, Mayor of the City and Borough of Juneau, and the City and Borough Assembly, do hereby issue this proclamation designating the week of April 12th through 18th, 2026 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. I encourage all citizens to observe this week in honor of all the telecommunicators who answer the call and act as a calm voice amid chaos, give our community peace of mind through the emergency assistance they provide, and help to protect our health and safety. Thank you.
And we appreciate Ms. Calwara for being here today. And do you have anything you want to add?
I wish there were some dispatchers with me, but they're all either working or sleeping. And we're at about 50% staff right now, unfortunately. But the dispatch supervisor's on a console today. She's working, so she couldn't be here, but Chief Hatley's here. So appreciate him being here, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that for me, Mr. Smith. Reading two proclamations is tough on the voice. Anyway, with that, we are closing testimony for non-agenda items. Testimony is still open for agenda items. Next, we'll move to approval of minutes. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move approval of the January 7th Special Assembly meeting minutes, the March 9th regular assembly meeting minutes, and the April 1st Special Assembly meeting minutes, and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, those minutes pass. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Next, we go to the manager for any requests for agenda changes.
None.
Thank you for that, and just have to give me a minute to figure out who's all here for non-agenda items. We will begin with our folks on Zoom. So everybody just be prepared to sit tight because we have almost 60 people wanting to do non-agenda items. So if we give them 2 minutes, that's an hour or 2 hours. So do we want 2 minutes or a minute and a half? Looking at the body. 2 minutes? Hour and a half? Someone make a decision. Mr. Kelly?
I'm fine with giving the irregular amount of time of 2 minutes per person.
Okay. And if you don't need to take all your 2 minutes, we would appreciate your not taking all your 2 minutes. All right, with that, we'll go to Zoom. And please bring over Joshua Adams.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name and the area of town you live in for the record. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Joshua Adams, and I am an incremental developer from Juneau. CBJ has released a bid package to prospective contractors offering $5.5 million to demolish the historic neighborhood of Telephone Hill. But we have no plan, no contractor, developer, or investor who has agreed to rebuild the neighborhood after demolition. The CBJ manager has described this phasing tactic as risky but bold. If we want to see the future, we must look at the past and examine other attempts to employ this flawed technique. This same scheme has been tried before many times in other places. An infamous example is New London, Connecticut, where a residential neighborhood was demolished in anticipation of a hypothetical redevelopment that stalled after the demolition and was never completed. The residential area was demolished, but the project then went no further because the anticipated developer withdrew its interest and declined to proceed. The local government failed to have a complete plan and an enforceable contract. This is important, an enforceable contract with the developer before the demolition. And that spelled disaster for New London, Connecticut in 2005. After demolition, the Connecticut project was abandoned because there was no market and no financially qualified developer or investor who would undertake the project. Nothing was built in the demolished zone. What formerly was an historic, vibrant residential neighborhood is now empty and a home for invasive weeds and feral cats. The Connecticut experience is a cautionary tale for Juneau. You cannot build a future by erasing your past. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Adams? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we'll go to Molly Emerson.
Hello. My name.
Hello, please state your name and area of town you live in. For the record, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Molly Emerson. I'm a resident on Capitol Avenue in the Flats. I am here tonight also as a concerned member of the community to urge the city to pause the process to demolish Telephone Hill until the city has received and evaluated responses from developers through a request for qualifications or request for proposal process for the development on this site. For the last 10 years, I have been a project developer of large utility scale power plants, and my profession requires me to advance the development of this critical grid infrastructure. And I come to the city as a developer urging you not to take an irreversible action without a full understanding of the budget and scope of your plan. Before committing public funds to demolition, the city should first issue an RFP to developers proposing housing solutions on Telephone Hill. And assuming the site is fully demolished, cleared, and graded, consistent to what the city envisions, the developers could bid and give their proposals. And this approach would allow the city to understand what types of projects developers would realistically pursue under those assumptions, and whether those proposals actually align with the community's housing goals and the need for affordable housing. Proceeding with the demolition without first knowing what development is feasible or likely exposes the city to significant risk. Development would be an irreversible action undertaken with taxpayer dollars without a clear understanding of the ultimate cost or outcome. And demolition with no developer lined up could very well likely result in a vacant graded lot in the middle of downtown with no committed development plan. In that scenario, the city would have limited leverage and may be forced to accept the highest or only bidder's proposal, regardless of whether it delivers affordable or community-oriented housing. So without advanced developer input, I think there's a very strong risk that the eventual outcome will be a market rate or luxury condominiums rather than affordable housing, which would not reflect responsible stewardship of this public funds or land.
Ms.
So as a young
Emerson, you're
member of this
out
community,
time.
I
Thank you for
urge
your
the city
testimony.
to delay demolition-related
Any
expenditures.
questions
Thank
for
you.
Ms. Emerson? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. And folks, we just can't run over today. It's not fair to everybody else. So next we have Selena Finley. Yep. So if you're going to testify, you have to come up here where the clerk is and she'll turn on the mic for you. So don't touch the mic because you'll probably turn it off unless it's adjusting that. But you have 2 minutes and please state your name and area of town you are for the record.
I appreciate it. Good evening. My name is Selena Finley. I serve as the board chair for the Southeast Alaska Food Bank. I came here tonight to advocate for the continued support and funding of social service programs in Juneau. As you likely know, this past year was marked with some challenges, some unexpected, which contributed to additional food insecurities in our community. Grocery prices are up, transportation prices continue to rise. Some federal food programs were paused and/or eliminated. We know that hunger is not a personal failure. It's linked to systemic problems. Some of these are complex. We might not solve overnight, but we can invest in social services now. These investments make an immediate impact on our community, strengthening community members and allowing our organizations to bridge gaps in the short term and better advocate for long-term solutions. At the food bank, I can report that funds previously received from the city have resulted in recent wins. This past year, we created a new programs manager position on our team, promoting someone who is now overseeing numerous programs exceptionally well, which allows our director to focus more on our strategic tasks. Other big wins include our warehouse is now largely full of food. This allows us to ensure food is where we need it, when we need it, including after emergency situations. These things would not have been possible without an influx of funds. I thank you for your continued support.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Finley? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Bree Kozlerich. I think I got that close. Please state your name correctly and area town you live in for the record.
Hi, I'm Bree Kozlerich, and I live downtown, and I'm the board chair of the 4As, also known as the Alaska AIDS Assistance Association. I'm here to explain the importance of our funding from the Juneau Community Foundation and what a 30% cut would look like. A 30% cut to the 4A's HIV prevention program would not reduce need. It would reduce access to life-saving services. This program is a frontline defense against HIV, hepatitis C, and overdose in Juneau, and it is working. Last year alone, we served 486 unique participants across 5,590 visits. That means people are not just accessing our services once, they're relying on them consistently. We provide testing for HIV, hepatitis C, syphilis, and other STIs, and distributed over 1,000 doses of naloxone, each one capable of reversing an overdose. This funding cut would significantly reduce staff time, forcing us to cut office hours nearly in half. The need would remain, but access would not. We have also partnered with public health nurses to provide rapid hepatitis C testing and linkage to care, helping at least 4 individuals clear hepatitis C. That's not just prevention, that is eliminating disease in our community. With reduced hours, that work is at risk. Fewer hours also mean fewer opportunities to connect with people experiencing homelessness, moments that often lead to housing referrals, treatment, and stability. Every missed interaction is a missed opportunity to change someone's trajectory. The 4As is also part of the Teal Street Service Hub. When our hours are reduced, it weakens the entire network of care. These cuts will not save money. They will increase long-term costs through higher rates of infection, overdose, and emergency care. This program is working, it's saving lives, and we urge you to protect this funding and the health of our community. You all have a one-pager with all this information on it, and I yield my time.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Daniel Alston. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Danielle Alston, Twin Lakes. Good evening. My name is Danielle Alston, Deputy Director of NAMI Juneau. Right now, more people in Juneau are seeking mental health support while fewer services are available. With the closure of the Bartlett Crisis Center and Rainforest Recovery Center, the growing wait list for counseling, many residents are being left without timely care. NAMI Juneau has stepped in to fill that gap. In the past year, we expanded our capacity by hiring key staff and scaling our free evidence-based programs, allowing us to reach more individuals, families, and youth when they need support most. We have expanded suicide prevention education to families, strengthened peer support skills among high school students, introduced social emotional learning for younger children, and tripled our peer support associate. And together we are a strong community crisis response training in Juneau and across Southeast Alaska. These programs not only are preventative, they are equipping community members to respond when formal services may not be immediately available. These efforts are making a measurable difference, but they also are at risk. A reduction in funding will force us to scale back these programs, reducing access to early intervention and peer support at a time when our community has fewer alternatives than ever before. The result will be more people going without care until they reach a point of crisis. We understand that many organizations are facing funding challenges, and we are actively pursuing additional revenue sources. However, increased reliance on fundraising places an added strain on a community already facing raising costs of living and increased donation requests from other impactful organizations. Maintaining funding for NAMI Juneau is not only supporting one organization, it is the investment in accessible preventative mental health care for this entire community. We respectfully ask the Assembly to maintain funding for social service organizations so that we can continue meeting this critical and growing need. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Rachel Gearhart. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
My name is Rachel Gearhart and I live in the Highlands. Thank you for allowing me to speak to the importance of Juneau Community Foundation's funding to help social service agencies like JAMI. I'm the Chief Integration Officer and have been an employee at JAMI for 15 years. While we do receive grant funding from the state of Alaska, that plus the fee-for-service reimbursement does not cover the true cost of a robust array of wraparound services to clients. Grants from the state of Alaska, including ours, that support services to severely mentally ill clients, those with substance use disorders, and those with co-occurring disorders, will be cut by 75% this year, with further cuts coming in following fiscal years. This CBJ funding is more important than ever to help offset that funding reduction. Our behavioral health staff are Juneauites. They live here year-round. They support our business and our city. Serving these high-level clients in the community whenever possible is a cost savings to the city because we're often able to meet them where they are and provide help before higher cost emergency and law enforcement resources are used. The robust array of services that JAMI provides helps clients get housing, counseling, skill building, psychiatric medications prescribed, wellness services, and their primary medical care all under one agency. And that sounds like just a list, but it's actually really complex when clients don't always know what they need or when they need it or how to access that help. They need navigation to resources that they didn't know about or had barriers to accessing independently. Our clients are very engaged in their care and empowered to make changes big and small that they have agency and autonomy with. Some recent data from a sampling of our behavioral health clients showed that 100% of them said that they liked the services they received. They were given information about their rights. They decided their own treatment goals instead of the staff. They were encouraged to take responsibility for how they live their life. And I think most importantly, that the staff believed that they could grow, change, and recover. I have a lot of examples of clients who are in a much better position because of the care that they received at JAMI. But one in particular is of a client who over the years ended up moving out of Juneau because they had skills.
Good finish. Any questions for Ms. Gearhart? Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Gearhart, could you repeat those stats on the cuts that you said at the beginning of your testimony?
Yes, so we have a community behavioral, it's a CBHTR grant, and I can't tell you what all those acronyms are for at this moment on the spot, but ours will be reduced by 75%. That's across the board. Most grantees are experiencing a significant cut, and then the following year it'll be 85%.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Rebecca Longshore. And actually, to speed this up, we'll go down a couple. Next, we'll have Jake Jackson and then Mike Helms. So go ahead, Ms. Longshore.
My name is Rebecca Longshore. I live in the Mendenhall Valley. I'm the Big Brothers Big Sisters coordinator for Juneau. So I'm the person that meets the kids and the volunteers from the beginning to help build their relationship into something that is long lasting and leaves a positive impact, often for a lifetime. I also stay with the matches to check in and provide whatever support is needed to help ensure that their match lasts. When we talk about mentoring, I want you to know this isn't abstract. I see the impact every day. For a young person who is struggling, start to open up because they finally have a much needed and trusted friend. Our teen begin to believe in their future because someone is helping them explore what's possible. Here in Juneau, we're continuing to grow. We're building new matches every month, and we're helping teens connect to real career pathways through our Big Futures work. Also, I see the other side, young people who are still waiting for a mentor. CBJ funding is what allows me to do this work, to recruit mentors, make matches, and stay connected with families so that those relationships succeed. If funding is reduced, it doesn't just impact a program. It means fewer matches, more kids waiting without the support, and it means cutting off Juneau's youth from the much needed connection that our program provides. Mentoring is an evidence-based prevention approach. After receiving a mentor, 88% of our youth see improvements in school. 100% say they have a caring adult in their life, and 93% avoid risky behaviors. Youth with mentors are less likely to initiate substance use and more likely to make healthy choices. Funding mentoring now reduces downstream costs in treatment, justice involvement, and emergency services. Please take this into consideration when weighing the value of preventative services. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Longshore? Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your testimony. Do you have a waiting list of kids who are waiting to get into the program currently?
Yeah, we do. I believe there's about 30 in Juneau. Right now, we're currently serving about 20 matches, but it's growing every day. It's just me here, so there's only so much I can do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Jake Jackson, Mike Helms, and then Lee Dickey. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Jake Jackson, and I live in the Flats. Good evening, Assembly members. My name is Jake Jackson. I serve as the Vice Chair of the board for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Alaska here in Juneau. My wife, Crystal, and I are also a big couple, so this is not just something that I support as a board member. It's something we live and are proud to do in my hometown. Our organization has been part of this community for decades, helping young people facing adversity build strong, stable futures through one-to-one mentoring relationships. I've seen firsthand what happens when a young person has a trusted adult in their life. Everything actually changes. Confidence grows, school engagement strengthens, and young people begin to see real possibilities for their future. Momentum is building here in Juneau. Through expanded partnerships and our new Big Futures program, we're helping local teens successfully bridge the gap between mentoring and adulthood. CBJ social service funding is the foundation of this work. It allows us to invest in prevention, supporting youth before challenges become crises. If that funding is reduced, the impact will be immediate. Fewer youth served, longer wait lists, and lost opportunities for kids to stay on a positive path. Investing in mentoring ensures more young people in Juneau have someone in their corner, a gift that strengthens our entire community. Thank you for your leadership, your support, and your genuine heart for our city's youth. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Jackson? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Mike Helms, Lee Dickey, and then Tony Tangs.
Mayor Weldon. Mayor Weldon.
Yes.
Are we, there's some concerning noise happening. Do we know what is happening?
That
Just
is
so
our
everyone
boiler.
feels
That is our boiler.
okay,
Sorry.
safe here.
And
Thanks.
parts are on order, have been on order for a while. Mr. Helms, please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
My name is Mike Helms. I'm the Executive Director for Gaston Human Services, and I live in the Valley. I'm here in support of the CBJ funding through Juneau Community Foundation. It's been an invaluable partner of our agency for the entire time I've been involved, and that's about 26 years. Our most recent success with Juneau Community Foundation money is through the school backpack program, We provide kids that are food insecure with food for their weekends. It's about 6 items of fairly decent nutrition, but the money can't buy perfect foods. But we've given out over 20,000 bags so far this school year. With the cuts to that budget of 30%, it won't be sustainable. And the children of Juneau will go hungry on their weekend. Another thing Juneau Community Foundation has done for us is helped to stand up a 3.1 treatment facility, the same facility that was able to step in and help when Rainforest had to close. These are the things the funding has been able to help us do, and without it, we won't be able to do. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Helms? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony tonight. So next we have Lee Dickey, Tony Tangs, and then Larry Talley. Please state your name and area of town you live in, area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
I'm Lee Dickey. I live in South Douglas. I'm the statewide advocacy director for Alaska Legal Services. ALSC is a nonprofit statewide law firm dedicated to providing access to justice for those in need. We have 10 offices around the state, including one here in Juneau at the Teal Street Center. Our attorneys have been serving Juneau clients since 1967. In 2025, our Juneau office helped clients in 442 cases, achieving outcomes that positively affected not only them, but in some cases, their households. In some cases, the outcomes were quantifiable. We helped residents secure over $42,000 each month in ongoing public benefits that they were entitled to, and an additional $197,000 of one-time benefits that had been improperly withheld from them. Civil legal aid delivers immediate, measurable returns for families and individuals, but national research shows that every dollar invested in civil legal aid also generates about $7 in economic return. ALSC helps prevent homelessness, secures federal benefits for vulnerable residents, and supports survivors of domestic violence, all of which in turn lowers costs for emergency shelters, healthcare, social services, emergency financial assistance, and law enforcement by resolving legal issues before they require government intervention. Local funding is critical to our ability to maintain a statewide footprint. CBJ Hope funds are the primary source of local funds in our Juneau office. The funding supports approximately 1.5 of the 3 attorneys serving Juneau residents, so loss of this funding would be devastating to us. We're very grateful for the generous funding we've received for many years and hope to be able to continue providing the same level of service in the future.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Okay, next we have Tony Tangs and Larry Talley, then Catherine Fritz. Please line up so we don't have to wait for you to get up out of your chair. So next we have Tony Tangs, Larry Talley, and Catherine Fritz. Mr. Tangs, please state your name and area of town you live in for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Excuse me, I have a severe hearing impairment. I can't tell if I hope the volume is okay. I'm Tony Tangs and I'm from downtown. So you're going ahead with it and asking for bids to demolish the key historical neighborhood of Telephone Hill. Even though you must know you guys are really going off the reservation with this project. It has to do with the elephant at the center of the room with this. This is the first time in Juneau's history that the Assembly is massively subsidizing housing for the well-off at an ultimate tally of $300,000 per unit by the time it's done. 1/5 of the project is also subsidized as much, but to be called affordable. And that's the key, because those units are special. They're the fig leaf behind which the whole project hides as creating affordable housing. The Assembly members talk about that, the affordable housing they're creating, and not how they're subsidizing a housing development mainly for the well-off. Whatever the case, let's get real. Even those fig leaf units designated affordable housing will not be affordable housing except under a wild stretch of the imagination, and especially not affordable for the city at such a wild projected subsidy amount. There's a lot of groups testifying for the need for continued city support to keep their services going. As your uninvited personal advisor, I will say this. Being seen in an assembly pursuing a project to develop massively subsidized housing for the well-off is not a good look right now. You would do yourselves and the city a favor to please put a stop to requesting for bids for the demolition of Juneau's most historic downtown heritage neighborhood right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Tangs? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Larry Talley, Catherine Fritz, and then Joan O'Keefe. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Larry Talley and I live in the Flats. Thank you for your public service. I wasn't aware that this was Public Service Week, so great. Tonight, I want to invite your attention to the historic value of the homes on Telephone Hill. Juneau's Historic Resources Advisory Committee is a volunteer advisory body appointed by the Assembly. Members are selected based on their knowledge and experience in the fields of historic preservation, cultural resources, and the stewardship of the built environment. I'm going to use the phrase HRAC to mean the Historic Resources Advisory Committee. Their 2025 annual report, currently in draft, continues to advocate for preservation of Telephone Hill as an adaptive reuse historic neighborhood, including the potential for sensitively designed infill structures. This is consistent with HRAC's annual reports for 2023 and 2024, and letters from HRAC to CBJ dated 11 December 2023, 15 April 2024, 6 May 2024, 19 October 2024. Did I miss any? This is also consistent with the National Register of Historic Places registration form for Telephone Hill Historic District that is pending for review at the office in Anchorage. HRAC members who you appoint because of their expertise have told you multiple times that the homes on Telephone Hill are a direct, tangible connection to our history and should be preserved. You appointed HRAC members. They gave you advice. Please consider taking the advice of those you have selected for their expertise. Even if you believe a housing project is worth more than the historic district, don't demolish this historic district until you know that you can afford to put housing where your market analysis says is a very expensive place to develop. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Talley? Hearing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Catherine Fritz, Joan O'Keefe, and then Joyce Niven.
Thank you, Mayor and Assembly. Catherine Fritz, I live in the Highlands. What can I possibly say to help you fully think through this project before you destroy the public asset of Telephone Hill without justification? I went back to my first public testimony in September. This was back when I honestly thought that the manager got just a bit ahead of the Assembly because she hadn't had sufficient time to really think through the project. Back then, I believed that if more information was provided, you would certainly agree that evictions, demolitions, and blasting were premature until a developer was selected. But here we are. Evictions are complete, demolition is out to bid, and there continues to be absolutely no plan for redevelopment. The only new information is the reality of the Eagle Crest Gondola project, a project that was not thought through before making a huge financial obligation. So tonight I ask you to do 3 things. 1, immediately pause the demolition bid until you have a viable development plan. 2, ask your manager to gather data. For example, what is the current inventory of new housing projects? This will help you better understand what is needed and viable on Telephone Hill. Also have staff develop pro forma. We have provided you with cost concerns for the large subsidies that we think will be needed. Have your professional staff review these, run your own versions, to give you a realistic idea of what the public subsidy will need to be. And then 3, incorporate that data into your developer RFQ and expand the scope so that you consider all types of possible developments so you can truly evaluate how much housing bang you can get for the public buck. Some of you have been reluctant to ask staff to provide any more information, but without data and thoughtful planning, you are working off different assumptions, speculating about possibilities without a rational shared basis of understanding. You are being very risky. You are not being bold. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from Ms. Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Fritzy, for being here. We have done quite a bit of feasibility assessment. We've done market research. We've done developer outreach. All of that is available. We've done designs. Have you reviewed all of those documents? I think all those things you just said, we have. What makes you think those do not meet the bill of what you're asking for?
Ms. Fritz?
I thank you through the mayor. I have reviewed those in detail, and unfortunately what I see happening is some of the recommendations, such as the market analysis, you're not looking at that in context of what you're expecting to get. So read it and find out how much financial effort it's going to take to make the project happen. In terms of design, you don't have designs. You have a very preliminary concept. You have no design, no plan for how much housing is really feasible or viable, and whether or not 4 lots are going to be adequate or some other number of lots will be adequate on the hill. So yes, I have reviewed it in detail, and I find that the planning and the actual thought processes to make it viable for development have not been done adequately.
Thank you for your testimony. So next we have Joan O'Keefe, Joyce Niven, and Kim Metcalf.
My name is Joan O'Keefe, and I live in Douglas, and thank you for this opportunity to testify. I'm here on behalf of Southeast Alaska Independent Living, or SAIL, where I've worked for 29 years, the last 25 as executive director. I understand the Assembly is considering cuts of up to 30% to CBJ social service grants administered by the Juneau Community Foundation. I'm here tonight to urge you to support the manager's recommendation to maintain flat funding. Cuts to social services will ripple across our community, hitting low-income and vulnerable residents the hardest. In 2025, SAIL served nearly 300 Juneau residents, people of all ages and all disabilities, with intensive independent living services. Those services are different for every individual. For example, it might look like helping someone find or maintain housing. It might look like helping someone make their home accessible so they can age in place. It could look like our employment program that helps youth gain necessary employment skills for successful transition to adulthood, or our adaptive recreation program, working with seniors and people with disabilities to help them get out of their homes and integrate into the community. On top of the 300 Juneau residents we serve more intensively, we provide a variety of services for the community at large. For example, loaning more than 600 items each year from our durable medical equipment loan closet, things like wheelchairs, walkers, and bedside commodes. We provide ADA technical assistance and disability awareness training to Juneau businesses. SAIL is in the schools, we're in homes and throughout the community every day, helping people live independently and stay connected. A 30% cut would mean a loss of more than just the grants themselves. SAIL and probably all grantees proudly leverage the holy heck out of CBJ investment, bringing in many-fold that amount from other sources. Flat funding isn't just maintaining the status quo, it's protecting independence, dignity, and cost effectiveness, and I encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from Ms. O'Keefe? Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Joyce Niven, Kim Metcalf, and then Steve Sankson.
Joyce Niven, I live in the Valley. I'm speaking tonight as the co-chair of the Juneau Housing First Collaborative DBA, the Glory Hall Board. I'm here to provide some data points on the impact CBJ's Social Services Advisory Block Grant has on our community. It's important to note that for every dollar provided by CBJ, the Glory Hall secures an additional $6 in grants and donations. The Glory Hall serves over 60,000 meals per year. The shelter provides over 17,000 nights of safe shelter every year. Data from Juneau's Housing First program shows that when people moved into permanent supportive housing, police contacts dropped from 667 to 231 in just 6 months. For these residents, emergency room visits dropped from 383 to 153 in the 6-month study period. Ambulance transports were reduced from 224 to 103. after housing placement. This is a measurable reduction in the strain on our local healthcare system, resulting in better availability of emergency services for the broader community. Each week that Housing First participants remain housed, Juneau sees roughly 30 fewer crisis system interactions across police, emergency rooms, and ambulance services. This data shows that when we fund housing and shelter programs, we are not just helping individuals, we are reducing the burden on police, EMS, and the emergency room. Lastly, I'm here to express our support for extending the warming shelter and for not allowing the chaos of last summer to reoccur on Teal Street. What happened last summer was unsanitary and unsafe for those without housing, our staff, and from the area business community and its customers. We need to do better. We are grateful to the manager's office, St. Vincent's, Teal Street Partners, and our staff for working together and coming up for a solution. Thank you for this opportunity to share the impact of CBJ funding.
Thank you. Any questions? I have a quick one. You said the study, you showed a great decrease in services for the first 6 months. Have you continued that any longer than 6 months? Have you looked to see if that's maintained at that rate?
It goes up to a year.
Thank you, Ms. Levy. All right, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Kim Metcalf, Steve Sankson, and Susan Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the Assembly, and Madam City Manager. My name is Kimberly Metcalf. I live downtown. Here once again to ask you to give up your plans to destroy Telephone Hill in the name of needed housing. As one person has testified tonight, I think we need to do a new search to see how much housing we actually need, because I've seen a lot of building around town. So I'm thinking that we might not need that much housing, and especially on Telephone Hill. It's historic, as everyone else has pointed out. There's also been a petition signed by 1,052 of your constituents asking you not to destroy the hill. We've testified, sent emails, signed petitions, written letters to the editor, and demonstrated. You know, we've got some, as all these folks from the social services networks have pointed out, there's so many needs in this town for money. And we're talking about $9 million at least to destroy the homes on Telephone Hill, and then proceed with construction, which, as has been pointed out, we don't even know if there's somebody that wants to do that. So, you know, there's the needs include deferred maintenance on city-owned buildings. A certain boiler comes to mind here. I was wondering what that noise was. Potholes. Have you noticed all the potholes that we have this winter? I bet $1 million could go to filling all those potholes. I'm just asking you to take a hard pause on the request for bids like you did on the gondola project. You can do it for Telephone Hill. There's no shame in admitting that the idea was a mistake. You're a governing body, and I want you to show us that you're truly listening to your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Metcalf? Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Steve Sankson, Susan Clark, and then Paige Bridges.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Steve Sankson. I live in the Valley, and I'm here because a straightforward, community-driven workforce housing project designed specifically to meet an urgent, local, clearly defined need in alignment with the Housing Action Plan was blocked not by lack of funds, design, or community support, but by the city and borough's permitting process. The site would have created safe, affordable housing rental apartments for our workforce with over 100 new beds by Christmas last year for people who are currently unhoused or one emergency away from losing it. Our project met zoning requirements, received an assembly loan appropriation, obtained planning commission approval for all development permits, including hillside endorsement by a vote of 7-1, had professional plans developed, and secured a development team and community partnerships. Despite that, permit approvals stalled when the mayor said, unless you agree to build a second access road from the end of Gastineau Avenue to Thane Road, across the AEL&P property, and agree to maintain it forever, 24/7, you will not receive a building permit. This second access code road requirement broke the project and killed it. No one in the administration had any willingness to work out a solution. This is not about assigning blame to individual employees. It's about a system that's currently administered is preventing any meaningful solutions to our housing crisis. This is your pilot project. When permitting processes are opaque, inconsistent, and driven by bureaucratic and avoidable hurdles, the people who pay the price are our builders, our neighbors, families, elders, workers, and children. Our community needs housing now. We asked for 3 things tonight that are detailed in what I handed out. But basically, we need a total housing policy reset. It's clear from this and from other activities around the community that the administration's not aligned with the assembly.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Sankson? Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Sankson, you talk about the second access. From what I remember, no, that's like a fire code requirement. Is that
The
correct?
fire code interpretation, yeah, I provided a map also to show where that access route is in relation to our project site.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Susan Clark, then Paige Bridges, then Andrew Ingram. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
My name is Susan Clark. I live in the Flats. The first that the public heard about using Telephone Hill for the Coast Guard housing came up as an idea during a candidate forum in the last election, an idea that was quickly picked up by the city and shared to the press. A couple of months later, the Coast Guard sent an open request to all Juneau residents asking what any landowner might have available to meet their family housing needs. Those needs include 27 3-bedroom homes, 21 4-bedroom homes, 10% meeting the American with Disabilities Act, 10 2-bedroom homes, 3 1-bedroom homes, with an ability to expand. What the city offered was less than 1.4 acres, minus the space for the streets, which is equal to 1 block in the Flats. What the city, but what they told the Coast Guard on page 2 was a mere 0.4 of an acre. That was a typo. It hasn't been updated. But what they meant to say is 180,000 square feet, which is the misleading and erroneous 4.2 acres, which the city has routinely given to the public, to the First 40 Feet consultant, and to the assembly. CBJ told the Coast Guard that there would be no height limits, no conditional use permits needed, no planning commission oversight. What the city didn't say is that there's no access but the single, steep, narrow 3rd Street, no parking planned. The Taku winds hit the top of that ridge ferociously, making it a difficult spot for older or disabled Coast Guard families in winter. There would have to be a chain link fence at the top of the steep east and west drop-offs to protect children. The apartment buildings would wipe out all the top foliage except for the trees and bushes growing out from the steep sides of the narrow ridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Clark? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Paige Bridges, Andrew Ingram, and then Mary Jane Tenney.
Good evening, Paige Bridges, downtown. So we need places, we need beautiful green refuges like Telephone Hill for the mental health of our population. We need to be happy. People are not happy thinking of losing that. We need to be happy to be productive. We need variety, we need visual stimulation. And modern architecture is just different than historic architecture. And it can be beautiful, but we need a mix. And at many times, modern architecture is not beautiful. And I really want to take as example the State Museum building, which when you look at it, there's no variety on the facade. There's nowhere to look. You can't relax and look at, oh, this is beautiful. And then when they put the plantings in, or they put them in straight rows, and it's the most boring landscaping you've ever seen, ridiculously unnecessary like that. So what saves that area visually, it's the Nimbus art sculpture. And it's more than the form, it's the color, it's the green. The green shines. So Telephone Hill is our green spot in downtown Juneau. And if you take that away and you put modern gray buildings, it's going to be boring and horrible. Green is what I have here is the ultimate peaceful color. I just came up with that, but that's true. So I asked somebody one time why the city doesn't care that people are so angry about Telephone Hill. And the answer was, well, they're used to making people angry, but people forget about it. But nobody is going to forget about Telephone Hill. You're going to have a scar there for years. People will always be angry. That the anger will not pass. It will continue. People won't forget. And you have to take into consideration and hopefully care about the anguish that we feel. You don't read Facebook like we do. People are distraught about losing Telephone Hill. And so we experience anguish. We're distraught. Please save Telephone Hill. Please do not send these bids out. And please save our piece of paradise.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Bridges? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Andrew Ingram, then Mary Jane Tenney, and then Polly Handler. Okay. Next, we have Mary Jane Tenney, Polly Handler, and then Mary Alice McKean. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Mary Jane Tenney. I live in the North Douglas area of Juneau. Dear Madam Mayor and Assembly members, I do appreciate the attention and effort you are giving to create more housing in Juneau. I wonder, however, where will the 5.5 million for a starter come from? We have much less of a tax base for revenue since our last municipal election. I fear it will be in lieu of supporting much needed public services in Juneau. For one example, our fire department is understaffed, and CBJ's last offer, though the best offer they ever made, does not provide them with a competitive wage. According to a KTOO Signal article of March 2026, firefighters say it still doesn't make their department competitive for recruits or for employees to stay long-term. Anyway, our fire department is understaffed, have had to work mandatory overtime to make up for the shortage. This is not safe and leads to burnout. If the city were to sell the houses still standing on Telephone Hill for market value, they could have a considerable sum of money to work with, as opposed to shelling out, for starters, 5.5 million, which, due to prices rising everywhere with the sudden rise of gasoline, is likely to be a very conservative estimate of the actual cost to demolish them and prepare the site. Rather than thinking in terms of highest density housing on Telephone Hill, think higher and work around those historic homes. And the problem of the city's housing shortage cannot be expected to be totally rectified on Telephone Hill. Short-term housing needs to be addressed, such as Airbnb. If it isn't, what is the guarantee that any of this housing being built will not be used for short-term housing? Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Tenney? Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Holly Handler, Mary Alice McKean, and then Manny Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the Assembly. My name is Holly Handler. I live in the Twin Lakes neighborhood. I'm co-director of the Kin Support Program, Hayat Husani, which is a 2-year-old nonprofit in Juneau, serving grandparents, aunties, uncles, and other relatives who are raising kids outside the foster care system. And our goal is to help keep families stable, provide them the supports they need so that kids don't have to enter the foster care system, and that children can thrive even when they have a parent who is deceased or struggling due to a variety of traumatic circumstances. On the positive side, in our first year of business, we expected to serve about 50 families, and we ended up serving 62 families. All the children in those families were able to remain safe and independent outside the foster care system, able to stay with family in Juneau. The negative side is to talk about what would happen with the social services cut if it happened against the recommendation of the manager for flat funding. And to echo the great Joan O'Keefe, the point that I'd ask the Assembly and the Mayor to consider is the exponential effect of what happens when local funding is lost. It's not just a 30% cut in local funding. It is something that private foundations and other funders look at. And every organization here who's raising money as a nonprofit is dealing with the loss of federal funds and the restriction of federal funds and relying more and more heavily on private foundations. Our office just had a call with the private foundation last week to discuss a grant. And the first question they said is, what does your local funding look like? And a lot of those foundations have a formula, and they look at what local funding is coming in, and they will match either that amount or a portion of that amount. So the 30% cut would have a devastating effect, not only on like the immediate items that those funding is being used for, but on contributory funding from private foundations at a time when that funding is really critical. So thank you for your support to date.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Mary Alice McKean, Mandy Cole, and then Bruce Simonson. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Mary Alice McKean. I've lived in downtown Juneau since 1978. On Saturday, April 4th, the city posted a request for bids to demolish 7 houses on Telephone Hill. I asked the Assembly to stop this process until it has the results of the RFQ process that you are going to undertake. The RFQ process should be done in a way that enables the Assembly to determine a financially feasible plan for Telephone Hill. Now, the Assembly has acknowledged the cost of demolition and site preparation of $5.5 million and the cost of rebuilding the road and putting utilities in at $3.5 for a total of $9 million. But the single most important number of the additional costs is the construction feasibility gap. That is the gap between what the developer can make from the project and what the project will actually cost. Now, the Telephone Hill market analysis quantifies this gap at page 21, and 2 points stand out. Number one, the construction feasibility gap for 155 units with no parking is $137,000 per unit. At 155 units, that is $21.5 million in addition to the $9 million. Now, the city manager's FAQ on Telephone Hill, in the answer to the first question, in response to a question that's relevant to the question asked of Ms. Fritz, the FAQ states that the market analysis supports going forward with this project, but the city manager did not cite to any specific numbers or any specific pages in the market analysis that supports that assertion. And the construction feasibility gap with no parking is $21.5 million. Second, the construction feasibility gap with parking is $209,000 per unit. So please do not go forward until you know what you can do after you demolish the houses. Thank you for your work on the Assembly.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. McKean? Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Mandy Cole, then Bruce Simonston, then Maureen Converin, Connerton. There's a T in there, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Weldon. My name is Mandy Cole. I live in the Valley with the misfortune to go after Mary Alice, so I don't sound quite as mathematically smart as she does. But I wanted to bring you a few numbers about AWARE so that as you're continuing to kind of decide where cuts need to be made, that you think about the impact that your small amount of funding actually has on agencies such as mine. We have about a $3 million budget, and I get $83,000 from the Juneau Community Foundation through the Hope CBJ grant. I spread that out among 6 positions, so that's 6 other grant sources that use that money as a matching source. We don't need a lot, but we need to be able to show that local communities are able to support these services so that we can leverage those other millions of dollars that come from the state and the feds. And here's the tricky part. Sometimes it looks like it's money coming from the state, but it's actually coming from the feds through the state. And so the rules about how you match it are very difficult. And so for me, for many of us, using local matching funds to leverage those big, larger grants from the state and the federal is the safest way to make sure that we can continue to access that kind of larger pot of money that allows us to do 10,000 shelter nights a year and do 600 crisis intervention survivors a year. We work really hard to try and make that money go as far as possible. And we just kind of, it's not so much that $83,000 itself, it's what we can't do with that 83 once it's gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Cole? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. So next we have Bruce Simonson and then Maureen Connerton, sorry. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Bruce Simonson. I live downtown. First part of the little handout I gave here is 8 questions that I've asked in the last several meetings. I won't go over them again, but basically what are the guaranteed number of affordable units? What's it going to cost? And how are we sure that we're going to get what we want after the property has been transferred to the private sector? I'd like to draw your attention to the second page here. It's my best attempt to figure out what it's going to cost to do this project. The first thing is that there's $6.4 million as a forgiven loan from the state with interest for the original purchase of Telephone Hill. And to get the title, we got the title to Telephone Hill in exchange for that. There was a 3rd Street infrastructure project from Main Street to Dixon that cost, I understand, $610,000. You had an ordinance last year for $5.5 million to demolish the houses and evict and prep the site. I'd like to do the 4th line here, the fee simple title to 3.55 acres of land. My just over 1/10 of an acre is assessed for the land at about $165,000. 3.55 acres comes out in rough estimate as $5,219,100.62. This is what, if you use the assessed value for that land, what it would be assessed at. You also have consultant fees to the tune of $600,000 so far. And I'm just estimating staff time for the last 3 years. It maybe have 12-person years. We're looking at $1.2 million there. So we have an investment of $19,529,160. And what's the income, anticipated income? Well, at the committee of the whole meeting, you voted to do a fee simple transfer of title to 3.5 acres of Telephone Hill for $1. As far as we know, this is what we've got, $1 back for the 19 million and 5 in change. And that's to where we are right now. The second part of the page is going forward from 2026. It's another $27 million. By the time we're done, it's $47 million. This is the best I can do from the information I've got.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Simonson? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we have Maureen Connerton. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
My name is Maureen Connerton. I live in Auk Bay. And I wish I could read my writing better. Anyway, you've heard testimony from, over the years, you've heard testimony from many constituents opposing this project for many different reasons. Just even tonight, you've heard many different reasons. And you still continue to ignore your constituents' opposition. Do you remember any testimony? And it's for you older people, not the newer ones like Ella. Do you remember any testimony that was in favor of demolishing the hill before there was a developer and a solid plan? I don't think you do, because I've been, oh, you do? I would like, would you like to? Okay, maybe later. So you've paid over $500,000 to date to an out-of-state consultant to tell you what you want to hear. These consultants do not live here, do they not pay taxes here or vote in Juneau? So you've ignored the widespread community opposition, and I'm hoping that at least you will be responsive to the people that you've heard over the years to at least pause the demolition until you have a solid plan and a solid developer, not just a wish list. And perhaps you'd be interested that market analysis in 2023, Ms. Wool, it was 2023. That was before the new administration, tariffs, the building industry problems. So that was the original, 2023 was when that Leland was published. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Connerton? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Okay, that concludes public testimony on non-agenda items. So let's take a 10-minute break and come back and tackle the rest of the meeting. Any public requests for consent agenda changes other than ordinances for introduction? Is there any assembly requests for consent agenda changes? Seeing none, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the consent agenda as presented and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda passes. So that brings us to item 1, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2025-01, lowercase b, uppercase AF, an ordinance appropriating $208,487 to the manager to extend emergency sheltering services at 1325 Eastoff Way from April 15 to June 30, 2026. Funding provided by general funds.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Thank you. This ordinance appropriates $208,000 to fund the remainder of this fiscal year for year-round cold weather emergency sheltering services. It's important to note that if funded, this would come back in your annual operating budget for a little over $1 million in cost for the year-round shelter service operations. This solution for sheltering our unhoused population is really the culmination of some work, of a lot of work by our service providers and a lot of struggles, I think, with the dispersed camping that we have had over the last year. Really appreciate St. Vincent de Paul stepping up to offer these services year-round. This passage of this ordinance would also come with increased enforcement from CBJ of dispersed camping. So you recall in the past it's very difficult to enforce on dispersed camping and some of the public health and public safety problems that caused without having somewhere to send people. And having somewhere to send people will allow us to increase our enforcement on dispersed camping. I recommend the Assembly take public testimony and adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Manager. We have a few people that are signed up to testify. So for number 1, we have, I'll do the people in the room first and then go to Zoom. Scott Jenkins.
Scott Jenkins, 2029 Jordan Avenue. I'd like to begin with a simple analogy. I have 3 children, and one of the biggest challenges as a parent is managing their screen time. What I've learned is that the more freedom they're given with devices, the harder it becomes to pull them away. It always falls on my wife and me to step in to encourage them to go outside, do their responsibilities, or engage in something more productive. I see a parallel to what is happening downtown and around the Glory Hall. Of course, these individuals are not children, but imagine being allowed to camp freely for a period of time. You gather all your belongings, build relationships, form a sense of community, then suddenly it's all taken away, cleared out by big excavators and trucks, everything you own gone. Even if they were warned, the alternatives may not have felt viable or acceptable, so people stayed where they were. That approach is not effective governance, especially when dealing with some of the most vulnerable members of our community. We are not helping people by temporarily relaxing laws, allowing situations to grow unchecked, and then abruptly enforcing these laws in a costly and disruptive way. It creates instability, confusion, and ultimately does more harm than good. If our goal is to truly help people move towards stability and recovery, then we need consistency and structure. What is currently being allowed may create a sense of community, but it is not a healthy or sustainable one. The reality we are seeing includes increased drug use, violence, public defecation, theft, damage to private property, and a growing disrespect towards law enforcement. These conditions are not improving lives, they are making the situation worse. Our city needs to return to consistent enforcement of its basic camping laws. This is not about punishment, it's about creating a pathway towards accountability, stability, and ultimately recovery. I ask you to look at the big picture. Allowing unrestricted camping is not helping these individuals. It is enabling a cycle that keeps them from moving forward. Please remove the temporary relaxation of these laws and allow law enforcement to enforce them once again. This is a necessary step towards guiding people in a healthier direction. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Jenkins? Ms. Hughes Candies and then Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for being here, Mr. Jenkins, and for your testimony. So you are in support of the ordinance, is that correct?
100%.
Thank you.
Ms. Well, okay, never mind. That was an easy one. All right, thank you for your testimony tonight. So next, I apologize, I'm having a hard time reading this name. Molly Cara and Carr. Okay. Molly Carr, and then Aaron Sermon is behind her. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Molly Carr. I live in Douglas and I work for St. Vincent de Paul. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Assembly, and valued members of our community. Thank you for your time tonight. I want to start with a person, not a program. Last winter, someone came into the warming shelter after days of sleeping outside, cold, exhausted, and struggling. Before that, they cycled between Bartlett Regional Hospital, Juneau Sobering Center, and calls to Juneau Police Department. Each system did its job, but no one could offer what they truly needed, a safe, consistent place to be. Without that option, people often create encampments in areas of concern without sanitation or basic services, impacting both their health and the surrounding community. At the shelter, something simple changed. They got warm, they slept, they stabilized, and they had a starting point. That's what the warming shelter provides. We know we can't fix every situation, but offering a year-round place for people to go is practical, common sense step that reduces crisis and stabilizes our community. Let's see, sorry. And this effort is supported through partnerships with Polaris House, Aware, Sail, the Teal Street Center, the Glory Hall, local businesses like the T-shirt company, Gas No Guiding, and leaders across our community, including Kirby Day and Ray Thibodeau. They recognize the value of keeping this resource available. When the shelter closes, the need doesn't disappear. It shifts to a higher cost in systems like the ER, law enforcement, and emergency services. It costs far less to provide a shelter than repeated response to crisis. Year-round funding is not just compassionate, it's responsible, efficient, and necessary. Year-round funding, and its core is about giving people a chance to stabilize before they reach a breaking point and protecting the health and safety of our community. We're not able to solve every problem, but we can choose not to make them worse. Keeping the warming shelter open year-round is a decision that moves us forward, not backward.
We have to stop you, ma'am. Your
Yep, I'm
time
finished.
went.
Thank you for your
Ms.
time.
Carr. Is there any questions for Ms. Carr? Ms. Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Carr, for being here and to your organization for offering to help us consider this option because we'll be weighing, this funding allocation here. Can you tell me, so this will be a shift not only to keeping the warming shelter open longer, but also in how we enforce camping in the community. And so can you talk about, what you see the impacts are to how you operate in terms of more folks being sent your way?
Ms. Carr?
Thank you. I appreciate the question. And, we have the training, the staff. Obviously, the city's been very generous in providing the facility. We welcome more members. We have the capacity to take more. And we look forward to serving the community in the best way possible for everyone involved.
Ms. Wall, follow-up or a second question?
I have a second question if no one else has questions. Thank you, Ms. Carr. Can you tell me a little bit about, who are there folks that you don't take in when they're in need, and what are those situations where somebody, for whatever reason, I don't know, they have a pet or what individuals don't make it through your doors?
That's a harder one, Ms. Carr.
Yeah, that's a harder question. At times we do have to trespass for various violations to the rules of the shelter. We don't have any permanent trespass. So everyone is pretty respectful and understanding the rules. We do have to at times, provide a 2-day or a week, or at times even a month, depending on the severity of the situation. Generally, when they have the opportunity to come back, there's quite an adjustment in behaviors.
I'll ask a question because you kind of brought it up, but you can deal with pets, correct?
Mhm.
I think you have.
Yes.
Great. Okay, thank you. Anything further? Well, again, thank you for your testimony and thank you for your organization in making this happen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Next, we have Aaron Sermon and next Dave Ringel.
Hi, my name is Aaron Surma. I live on North Douglas. I work for NAMI Juneau on Teal Street, and I've been involved in various work groups to support folks who are camping there and find a new place for people to be. And I support the ordinance that you all have in front of you. It's important for all the reasons that you already heard. And I think I just want to add a piece that people are still going to be camping. The warming shelter isn't for everyone. There's people who've been camping all winter during a fairly difficult winter. I don't know if anyone noticed that or not. And so I think there's still going to need to be some consideration of where those folks are going to go. And I think there's some folks who are camping who warming shelter could be in a worse place if they're there, and they could be in a worse place if they're at the warming shelter. And I don't think that what happened last summer is a solution to that either. So a dedicated place like what was out near Thane is one idea that I think makes a lot of sense. But I think putting work towards where can people be, because folks have to be somewhere, and warming shelter isn't going to work for everyone, makes a lot of sense. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for Mr. Surma? Thank you for your testimony. Okay, next we have Dave Ringel and then Logan Henke.
Dave Ringel. I live in the airport neighborhood. I'm here as the co-chair of the Coalition on Housing and Homelessness and as past director of Safe Visit DePaul. 2 years ago, I sat here and was grilled on dispersed camping, and we agreed to take a chance at it. I was wrong, and I think we learned a lesson from dispersed camping. Safe Visit DePaul has a history of running the shelter over 5 winters successfully. It is not without challenges. We work hard not to be perfect, but to address problems and keep problems from becoming catastrophic, and maybe look at a problem as a learning opportunity. There's always been camping. When I first started at Safe Visit DePaul, my staff would patrol Jordan Creek back behind where the Glory Hall is now. And we knew people camped back there, but they were few. We could almost tell who was camping by the way the site was held. You could still service people like that. And some of those people will choose not to be at the warming shelter. The difference is it'll be a choice. It's not because there's nowhere else to go. And for every person that might choose to camp, we might have 9 or 10 people who choose to come to the shelter, even if it's 1 to 3 nights a week. And that option is there. They're welcome. They're safe. We do the best to meet their needs in the short time that we have them and provide a place that is a refuge for people who need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ringel? Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Ringel, thank you for your work and for being here. You and your organization may be not focused on this, so completely understand if you don't have an answer. Have you seen or heard of how changes to a dispersed camping policy or things in other places what kind of impacts those have had in other communities?
The only one I'm really familiar with is Anchorage, and they're trying to increase the amount of year-round shelter and put a more penal approach to camping. And I think the increase in year-round shelter, provided with a robust increase in low-income housing, is a way to give people hope. If they're just camping, they're so worried about survival, and day to day, even keeping a job is difficult. If you've got a place at least, you could start looking for housing. Once you get housing, you'll have a secure place. It's a progress. It's a continuum of care. Where the warming shelter is the life raft, but you got to be in the life raft to stay alive. And then we can get people to a better place and more services.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much for all the work you do in the community. It's greatly appreciated. I was just wondering if you know, kind of on a comparison where, you know, we're at a couple years ago when the dispersed camping happened, you know, what the number of homeless individuals was compared to where we're at now?
It's hard because the tabulation from the point in time count is currently being figured out. I do know that as a coalition, we sent organized groups out to campsites this winter, and we found campsites. We found them in smaller numbers than we had expected. And, you know, it's still too much. I mean, in 2020, the point in time count was, I think, 219, and 2 years ago, it was 324. And I suspect we've plateaued. Now we're trying to lower it. And the decisions made don't immediately lower, but they put in motion services with Housing First that took 30 people off the street. We might have got 15 more on it because cost of living is going up. We have eviction prevention and rental assistance as Band-Aids to keep people housed while we work on solutions. And the affordable housing in this community is part of the solution.
Any further? Thank you, Mr. Ringel, and thank you for all your time you've spent on this. So next we have Logan Hinking and then Jim Erickson.
Hello, my name is Logan Hankins. I live in the Valley. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to support the warming shelter combined with not allowing the chaotic Teal Street camping to go on again this summer. Also in support of the SSAB funding. Last summer, I personally cleaned up thousands of pounds of trash. I tried to help people camping in terrible conditions. I tried to support my coworkers and partner agency employees who were afraid to be at work or to walk to their cars because of the chaos. Just because people are poor and homeless or work in social services does not mean that they do not deserve a safe place to live and work. We all deserve a safe place to live and work. The warming shelter extension is not perfect, but it is the only doable thing we came up with. Not allowing dozens of tents on Teal Street is not a violation of people's rights. It is bringing order and safety to people's lives. It is doing what a city is supposed to do. For SSAB funds, I am now a productive and essential member of the Glory Hall team. I am a hard worker. I think on my feet. I am great in a crisis. I am a single parent of an amazing daughter. I do all the things, teach her how to drive, volleyball games, homework help, providing groceries and a home. We learn about our culture together. She's my life. I also used to live outside on South Franklin Street, struggling. This was a long time ago. I got help along the way. Because of Clinton Heights Regional Housing Authority, I'm about to become a homeowner. Because of the Glory Hall, I have a job and training, and I was able to get basic food, shelter, and help with transportation and other needs while I figured out my life. Because of the Southeast Alaska Food Bank, I was able to eat at the Glory Hall. Because of NAMI Juneau, I got certified as a peer support specialist. But the SSAB funding CBJ provides is critical. It funds all the agencies I mentioned and more. SSAB funding is critical for hope. It's critical for change and makes it possible if you are willing to do the work for lives to stabilize. It is critical in so many lives. Thank you for your time.
Any questions for Mr. Hankins? Ms. Hall.
I just want to say thank you, Logan. That was very powerful testimony. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
No. Next we have Jim Erickson and then Christine Millay.
Hi, my name is Jim Erickson. I own the Evergreen Ford property on Teal Street. And I'm here in support of the ordinance in front of you guys for extended the warming shelter. I was here around 9 months ago testifying about some of the problems we've had, and I can say firsthand They haven't gotten better, they've gotten worse. I have about 200 employees, 25 of which work at the Mallory Street property, the old Evergreen Ford building. And I got to tell you, with the onset of our season, we're in the seafood processing industry. With the onset of our season coming, I'm really worried about the safety of my employees coming and going from work. Just last week, I was challenged by an individual who I assume is, one of the dispersed camp areas around there. It was probably the first time I've actually really been personally frightened for my own safety. And that was just last Thursday. Since I testified last year, we've had people defecating on our property. It's on video. I think some of you have probably seen that. We hired a fencing contractor last fall to the tune of $150,000 to install a fence around our property. The project's been halted because 12 of the rolls of fencing have been stolen. It's really frustrating, and I got to tell you, I'm really worried about the safety of my employees. And this is not a simple problem. It's not an easy problem to solve. So you guys would have done this already. All of us would as a community. There's been some great testimony here tonight that acknowledges that. But there's another side to this too. And it's people that do show up, that I'm responsible for their safety every day. They come in early, they leave late. We're trying to get our fence finished. Of course, with the winter and the stolen fencing, which was about 25% of the actual fence is gone. We're trying to get that replaced. It's an ongoing problem, and I hope you guys continue to work on this. It's not easy, and I appreciate your help.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Christine Millay.
Hello. Mr. Jenkins, I really appreciated everything you had to say. You said everything I wanted to say. I was born and raised here, but I do want to say.
Can you say your name and
Christine
area-
Millay, sorry.
area town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
63 years, and I'm on Wren Drive in the Valley. And so I have seen Juneau in a pristine condition, and last summer, I have never seen anything like that. I have 2 kids that work in that area, so I'm subject to seeing it all the time. It's scary. And I was here, I don't know, some time ago and gave testimony to, it's not a matter of if it happens, but when it happens. And my concern is if they don't want to go, I'm in favor of the ordinance. Thank you so much. Let's please do that. But what if they don't want to go there? Are they going to be allowed to camp there again? And if they were, I am asking, please, can the law, they be enforced so that they aren't allowed to camp there? So it's actually a question to you.
We only take testimony at this
Oh,
time.
I'm
We don't
sorry.
answer
Okay,
questions.
I'll call back and find out, but that concerns me. I want to be sure that if they don't want to go to the warming shelter, that we can be promised in the community never to see that on Teal Street again. I've seen a lot of bad things in that area over to the Breeze Inn. There's a particular individual that comes up and wants to ask for money, and if you don't give it to him, he has a whole slew of colorful words, and it's not fair. It's not fair. So please, thank you so much, but don't kick the can down the road. Let us come up with several other options if this doesn't work, or reach out to the community so that we can participate and to help. We care about everybody, not just ourselves, but seeing the community go from what it used to be to what it is now, it's lawlessness. And I understand everybody's calling it camping. Camping in my day was camping out in the woods, not on the sidewalks.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Millay? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Relax, I have 2 more on Zoom. So Madam Clerk, will you bring over Dawn Wolf?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please state your name and area town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Yes, my name is Dawn Wolf, and I live in Mountainside in Juneau. So we're on the opposite end. Our business is right across from the shelter, and I have to admit, reluctantly for this ordinance, because I realize there's not very many good choices. A few years ago, when our office was broken into, as were several other businesses around that area. So what I do ask for, I did hear the city manager saying that they were going to have a increased police presence on, I thought she was referring to the dispersed camping, but I also hope that there is a increased police presence down in the whole rock dump area, especially when individuals aren't allowed to go in the shelter because they're belligerent or whatever. But maybe it could be part of a, I don't know, where if they patrol that area, whether they can be down there a little bit more. Also looking to see if there's people camping on the lots down there as well. So that's so I hope that this isn't a kicking the can down the road. But I do understand it's a hard choice. And I do also want to thank St. Vincent de Paul. They're wonderful people. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Wolf? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
I do want to mention that my husband's going to testify on this on my computer. So
Okay.
same audio.
Okay, Mr. Janes, will you state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the Assembly. My name is Robert Janes, Janes. I live in the Mountainside area in Juneau. I, along with my family, own Gastineau Guiding, and our offices are right across the street. They're on Mill Street, East Elway, and also we own Downtown Storage, which is a storage building right in that area, as well as offices. 2 years ago, we had a break-in, and it was a very difficult situation for everybody. The point I'm making here tonight is I understand the dilemma here. I refer back to the previous couple of testimonies about how things are just out of hand on Teal Street, and I don't want to see that happen in our neighborhood again. So whatever the Assembly chooses, I support reluctantly, but most definitely support this ordinance. But it's got to come with some standards, with patrol. We have young employees that work late at night all summer long. They're out of there by 10 or 11 o'clock. People were living in buses when the warming shelter was open 2 years ago, and that just can't be anymore. This is a neighborhood down there. It seems like it's the end of the road, but it's a neighborhood, and there are other offices down there. So please, whatever you do, stick with the enforcement and the regulation side of this project as well. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time and effort.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Janes? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. We've got a little confused there. Does anybody else want to testify on this ordinance that hasn't already testified? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the Assembly. Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the Assembly adopt ordinance 2025-01 BAF, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Is there any objection? Ms. Wall. Oh, sorry. Hang on. Ms. Hall.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd like to declare that I'm a member of the St. Vincent Board of Directors. However, I've spoken to our city attorney, and my participation does not constitute a personal or financial conflict, and so I will not recuse unless you deem it necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Steininger.
I would like to declare that I am a member of the Finance Committee for St. Vincent de Paul. Similarly, I've spoken to the attorney, and my activity doesn't constitute a personal or financial conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Hey, Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just objecting for a question. This is, what we have here in front of us is really kind of walking a fine line in terms of opening up more available places for people to go, which I think is a good thing. Lots of people spoke to why that is. But, you know, we've also had asks that's reflected here in, you know, a different approach to enforcement as a result of having a place where we can send people instead of where some folks have been camping. Manager Kester, will you give us an overview of kind of how you see this change in enforcement rolling out and what does it look like? I think I'm most interested in, you know, people here spoke to, there are going to be some folks who the shelter is not the right place for, and they don't, you know, they may need to seek other places for their own well-being or safety. So maybe speak through how we'll be approaching that.
Madam Manager, and you also have Madam Attorney to help you if needed.
That's great. Well equipped. I thank you for that question. So it would be our intention in implementing this ordinance, understanding that this ordinance is only half of the piece, right? Providing people a safe place to go to really increase our enforcement actions in those highly visible areas where we have received a lot of complaints. So we are a complaint-driven organization, whether it comes to all sorts of rules and regulations that we enforce. So the number and the diversity of complaints for any dispersed camping would influence how quickly and aggressively we would respond to that dispersed camping. We also would look at the public impact, not just who's complaining, but what that impact is to public health. And we would prioritize enforcement when those two things are high, right? When there's a high impact to public health and a lot of complaints. We would apply that all in the context of our code. And our code says you cannot camp in the right of way. So we would be very quick to enforce camping in the right of way. Other than that, we would, if we came to a situation where both of those two things were true, a high matter of complaints and a high public impact, we would allow someone to camp. Our code says they can camp there for 48 hours and then they're prohibited from camping in that location for the rest of the entire summer. We would draft a new memo. You may recall that we have a memo directive to staff on how to interpret city code, and we would draft a new memo to staff immediately following this meeting, should this pass, that gives them that direction. Important to note that there would likely still be dispersed camping, especially in areas where there is little impact to the public. Often, you see people camping out in the woods by themselves, and those individuals we would not be seeking out individuals to move on if their presence was not one of those two, if their presence wasn't high in that complaint and that public impact. So there still would be dispersed camping. When I go for a hike, sometimes there's encampments like 100 feet off the trail. Though that individual is really not bothering anybody, we still would like to provide services and do some outreach. Those are still people who deserve kind of that outreach. But importantly, enforcement would look different than it looked this summer.
Ms. Euskendis.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thank you for that, Madam Manager. In the past, we've had we had a designated campground and we did a variation on that where we serviced it all summer, and then that created its own problems. As part of that memo and as part of that enforcement, that is a good description of what types of places people may still camp and would not be disturbed. Would, as part of this process, directing folks to, let's say Teal Street gets super camped up again, and as part of that enforcement, would we direct folks to areas where there's not a city campground that we're maintaining, but sort of letting people know areas that are likely to not be enforced? Or I guess what piece of that's that other piece of that, we had a testifier who said, maybe, I think we all agree there's not an easy answer. If we had circle these spots, camp here, that creates its own problems, and we know that. But maybe speak a little bit about, in that memo, do you think that would just be absent from that, or what consideration you've given to that?
Madam Manager.
Yeah, I'd be happy for Attorney Wright to weigh in on this as well. But, sorry, I'm laughing because Robert can't help himself. But we would direct people to the emergency shelter, which will be a year-round shelter, and that is where we would expect people to go. I don't think we would be saying, hey, here's a map of some kind of off the beaten path places where you could camp. We would remain silent on that, just like we've remained silent on directing people to approved areas to camp. That being said, our directive to staff in that internal memo would be, as I explained, that kind of tiered approach. We'll see if Robert added anything.
Well, while you look at that, Madam Attorney, you want to chime in there?
I'll give her a second. So that's correct. I mean, even this year, we had individuals who maybe were looking to move away from Teal Street. They didn't want to go into the shelter, even if there was an available bed. And a lot of the service providers helped find different locations. So our official stance would be, these are the areas provided. There's a shelter provided, but there are many people in town who know areas that someone can camp quietly and peacefully, and they would continue to do that.
That's great. Thank you.
Madam Manager, do you have anything from the deputy that you want to add?
He said I nailed it.
Okay. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a question. Would, if this passes, what would it do, if anything, to individuals who might be living in a vehicle off the side of a public street for extended period of time?
Madam Attorney.
Thank you for your question. So those are covered by our code currently, and I think that it may be included in the memo in general as to our enforcement as a city against RVs where people are staying in RVs for a long period of time. Note, much of our land is DOT land, so out the road, not our jurisdiction. In most areas, but living in vehicles, camping, all of that has been covered in general by our policy under the Supreme Court cases that we had been monitoring. So that would shift and enforcement would change to following our code as written.
Thank you. Anything further? Mr. Clark, sorry. Mr. Smith. I don't know where Clark came from.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just objecting to the purpose of the question, some of my colleagues have addressed some of the areas I'd also been curious about. I guess one that I'm also interested in is there will be impacts to neighbors in the area of this of the shelter. I think I've asked a little bit about it before, but I guess I just kind of want to confirm. I mean, we're as best we can, we're looking at ways to try to work with neighbors or try to find ways to reduce impacts. Obviously, we only have so many police officers; they can only patrol so much. But I mean, we will try to do things to help out there. Anyway, if you confirm.
Who wants to answer that? Madam Manager.
Thank you. So yes, we will provide transportation. So much like right now, we provide transportation away from the emergency shelter. We will have, increased patrols, and we will not allow camping around that area. So there may be a temptation to set up camps near the cold weather shelter, and we'll be vigilant on that as well.
Thank you. Any further questions? Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Follow-up question to Madam Attorney. In terms of our code, when it comes to car camping, so the way I'm hearing you say that, it comes down to two things besides this ordinance. We have our code as it currently exists in the memo, which speaks to how to enforce the code. Are you saying that our code as currently written treats someone sleeping in their car as camping? Or are you saying in the memo it would be? I know, gray area.
Sorry. So I guess what I'll say is our code as written is a good code. It's a solid code in regards to camping, vehicles on the side of the road, people sleeping in those vehicles. But in 2017, 2018, Martin v. Boise, Grants Pass, all of those cases started coming down out of the Ninth Circuit, and we stopped enforcing our code. Many cities have been waiting. That decision came from the Supreme Court, and we haven't gotten direction to start enforcing yet. So what I'm saying is there are tools within our code to address a lot of these things, to address the camping in the right of way, to address vehicles that are along the side of the road. Those are available already.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have objection? Do you have an objection? Mr. Kelly, or just a question? Sorry.
It's not a question, but I did want to address some of the public testimony that came tonight. There were a couple people who testified that they don't want us to kick the can down the road. I can testify myself that I've been a part of an informal group. Several of the people who participated in this group are in the room. This includes nonprofits, people from nonprofits, government agencies, and our own Ms. Hall as well. We still acknowledge that this is not a permanent solution, and we are still working on ideas, but this is where and only because of the generous offer from St. Vincent de Paul, this is where we are this year, and there's still a lot of work to do and a lot of work that we will be doing. So with that, I'll remove my objection.
All right. Ms. Wall. Oh, I saw your hand first,
Okay.
Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Objecting for a comment just quickly that I would like us, if it's fine with the body, to, when that memo is drafted, not before it goes out, but after, to bring it back. I'd also like to see our code so that we can and get regular updates on how things are going so we can keep monitoring the situation. So not urgent, but just to say, this is just like when we went to disperse camping, we need to be tracking this. And I'd like to make sure our code and our enforcement are, continue to be consistent with our values. Thanks.
Do you remove your objection? Okay, Ms. Hughes.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm going to object just for a quick comment. Similar, much similar to what Ms. Wall just said. I appreciate that everything is imperfect, and so I'm okay with this as long as we are continuously checking in. I think there were some real emergent problems that we heard from residents and neighborhoods and things, and different kinds of camping, car camping, on the street camping, in the woods camping create different kinds of problems. And I think those call for different kinds of enforcement. And I do think our manager's office is good about coming back to us. And they were very careful last summer to try to not get ahead of us, because when Grants Pass was reversed, that did not mean that Juneau itself was reversed in how we wanted to treat those members of our community. And so I think this is a really good step when you have a consistent year-round place and you can really kind of say, nope, this is our hard line. We want you to go there. But there will definitely be folks who won't. And just knowing that, I want us to be really careful that we're both balancing the needs of the members of the community, that things don't get out of hand, and that we're fulfilling our obligation to those unhoused members of our community who we are equally accountable to and who are much less able at this point, in their lives to come and we heard a inspiring success story tonight. So I just want to make sure we don't lose that. So with that, I'll remove my objection, and thank you to staff for all the work on it.
All right, any further? Okay, going back, any objection? Ms. Hall.
Well, objection for the purpose of a comment, like my fellow Assembly Member Paul here. Yeah, I would like to say this isn't perfect by any means. In a perfect world, I'd like to have our low barrier shelter. We have one with the Glory Hall. the need is greater than what anyone can serve. It would be nice to have something a little more centrally located on a bus line with expanded hours and showers and laundry. And again, we don't depend on the city to come up with the funding for all that. So I just say, so everyone in this room should continue to look for solutions and work with partner agencies to help this happen. So with that, I remove my objection. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and no objection. Motion passes. Let's take 7 minutes. For item number 2. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2026-15, an ordinance authorizing the manager to dispose of 155 Heritage Way, City Hall.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Thank you. This ordinance authorizes the disposal of City Hall via sealed competitive bid with a minimum bid of $2.5 million. Important to note that though the body of the ordinance says that the title is written in a way that the Assembly could amend and change that and keep the ordinance moving. I recommend the Assembly take public testimony and refer this ordinance back to the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this ordinance? Mr. Anderson. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, Josh Anderson, North Douglas. I would just want to just put in your ear that if the building were to be sold, that it doesn't, we've got this thing going on where these non-tax paying entities are buying up a lot of the properties around town. So, if they were to purchase this building, then would that be just another large piece of property that would come off the tax rolls? And that's pretty much all I had to say about that. If you can consider that in the conditions of the sale or something like that.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Anderson? Seeing none, that concludes public testimony. Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the Assembly approve ordinance 2026-15. No, just kidding. I recommend we send this ordinance 2026-15 back to the Committee of the Whole and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, motion so moved. Item number 3, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2026-11, an ordinance amending CBJ Code 42.30.010, resisting or interfering with an officer to include interferences with fire department services.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Thank you. This just extends fire department personnel to our current code that protects the scene for public safety personnel. And it extends it to include fire department personnel to make sure that there is no interference with staff during their either extinguishing fires or caring for patients or carrying out their duties. It is important that this legislation does not restrict an individual's right to film or observe or document a scene. I recommend the Assembly take public testimony and adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Manager. And we have Chief Hatley here if we have any questions for him. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the Assembly. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I had a question for the chief, if that's okay.
Come on down, Chief.
Hi. Hello there. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
This is our first introduction.
Yes.
Hearing you talk. So
Welcome to the table.
Welcome.
Thank you. I had a question related to this, specifically on the interfering and tampering with hydrants. Do you have a rough idea of how much hydrant vandalism we have going on around here?
Not so much the hydrants, it's the FDCs, the fire department connections. A lot of those that are against the buildings, especially downtown, are manipulated and vandalized. And then, of course, when we need them, and when we find that, it is an issue. So,
thank you.
Any more questions? Ms. Hughes Counties.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thank you for being here, Chief. I am interested in hearing more about that. So maybe my question is an expansion on those connections, but I'm hoping you could talk a little bit more holistically what you see is the need for this ordinance, or what you're experiencing now, just since we haven't had this on the books, what are the problems that you're running into?
It kind of comes into line with when we're on scene with the interaction with the public and so forth. It just kind of comes into line with the law enforcement side. When we're actually providing patient care or on a fire, the public likes to get really involved with some things, and especially with dealing some of the high stress acuity calls that we go on. Gives our folks protection when we're out on scene. And again, it kind of falls in line with law enforcement and trying to protect our folks as well as our equipment while we're there. And I've seen in my career where a lot of that interaction, it hampers our skills and again, what we're trying to do to provide for the citizens. And when we have to deal with the public, we can't focus on the mission in front of us. So it kind of offers us protection.
Can I speak a little bit to that too? So people sometimes can't identify that they're fire personnel instead of police personnel. So they're coming in on a scene and a patient, and I've had people try to push us back because they think we're police, and it's, you know, we're saying, fire, fire, look at our bags. So that's one of the instances I know of. And then another instance that I can speak to is on a fire scene, we had the homeowner kept running into the house. And we had to control him not running into the house that was on fire. Ms. Hall.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just comment that there has been quite the uptick of assaults on healthcare personnel in hospitals and hospital ERs. And so a question for our chief, is this aligning kind of what is happening in other communities, making sure that police and fire have similar playing fields out in the field?
Yeah, it just keeps it consistent on both sides, especially for public service members, whether it's law enforcement, fire, or CARES personnel. It all is wrapped into one. So again, it's consistent nationwide. So I do believe it's a needed thing. It's sad that we have to have it, but it's needed.
And I didn't see, someone else had their hand up. Mr. Brooks, sorry, I missed it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for some context, could you tell us like how many calls you go on annually and what percentage of those are related to dealing with, you know, health issues, mental health, drug abuse?
Like I said, I've been here 6 weeks, 2 days, 12 hours, and 32 minutes. On the fire side, we're running over 5,000 calls. On the care side, on the community health side, it's over 2,000. I would say the mass majority of our calls, we're dealing with public, and especially on the care side, dealing with the demographics and so forth. There's always a risk dealing with individuals. And then again, on the fire side, you guys read in the paper, you know, every month where emergency worker has been attacked. We've had ambushes, firefighters shot and killed. I've been shot at twice in my career and assaulted. So I think it definitely has some validity to it. So it's not a safe job.
Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I am wondering because I've seen these sorts of laws with law enforcement in the past. I'm wondering if you know, if other communities within the state of Alaska, or that could be to the manager, the attorney, have these on the books? Is this pretty common? Or and then nationally, how this compares? Because you talked about earlier in your career, and so it certainly sounds like you've seen this elsewhere.
Every department I've had has been, I've come from in the lower 48 has. I'm not too keen, like I said, on the Alaska so far, but it's in tune nationally. And again, I think industry standard, it's pretty common to have it align with the law enforcement side.
Do you have anything to add, Madam Manager?
No.
Okay, any more questions? Oh, Ms. Atkinson, yes, I'm looking right at you, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is probably more likely for the city attorney. I just wanted to kind of talk about briefly the hydrant and the beginning part, which is in any manner. It's not knowingly or recklessly or anything like that. So in the situation of like Snowmageddon, for instance, where people are trying to clear out hydrants or they're plowing snow, if someone were to, accidentally, damage a hydrant or in some way during that, would that put them under this code here?
Madam Attorney.
Thank you. So let me just go to let me look just really quickly. So what I would say is our penal code. So this is the same code that we use for resisting and interfering with police officers. We, in a different section of code, have a knowingly standard there. So there's also a recklessly piece, but we would be bound by our penal code.
Yes, we want people to shovel the hydrants. Any more questions? All right, so we'll bring it back to the assembly. I think we're on Mr. Brooks, right?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we adopt ordinance 2026-11 and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Ms. Candies?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to object just because I would like to send this to a committee. This is great to get a surface level, some of the top questions. I would just like to get a little more information about how this compares within the state and if this is just a national thing. Like I said, I'm familiar with it on the police department side. And also, to be clear, I should lead off by saying I want our firefighters to be safe. And if this is seen as something that's going to keep them safer, then I am not supportive of that. But I just would like to get a little bit more information. And I personally think that just because this didn't go to a committee or anything like that, without just a little bit more surface explanation when we make changes to our something that we're criminalizing it, I want to feel pretty good that there's this is a good thing that we're solving. There is, unfortunately, it seems like a national tendency where there's not just healthcare workers, but also teachers and social workers have always been a dangerous job, and lots of positions like that. And I think sometimes we just kind of have those two, police and fire, and we stamp them, or, we stamp it on those ones. And so I'd just like to see a little bit more, and maybe we scratch and we think, oh, wow, there's a whole bunch of things that we should be looking at. But in any case, I would move to amend and send it to, who is the chair of HRC? HRC might be a good one to refer it to if the chair would be willing to have it. And then we could bounce back up to us pretty quickly.
I think we are anticipating a pretty full agenda for the next meeting, but we might be able to hear it by in a couple months.
Okay. I guess I'd leave if that would be fine, or Cal would be fine. So my motion would be to amend just to send it to a committee and then send it back.
All right, any objection to that? I'll object. I think this is a pretty benign one, and I think it's a pretty simple one. And like you said, it's a national standard, so I don't think we need to spend any more time on it. Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would agree with you because at the very end of it, it is very specific on maintaining constitutional rights and protected activities. So, the baseline worry of, is this going to impact someone in a negative way, kind of gets remedied at the end there. It says this isn't to limit or restrict anyone's, constitutionally protected rights.
All right, we have an amendment and an objection. Madam Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For Ms. Candy's amendment to send ordinance 2026-11 to a committee, to HRC.
To a committee, I think. I think it was better.
He's rejecting it.
What is it, Ms.
Can-
Hughes-Gannis? You can,
You don't have to do it to the next one,
Okay.
to HRC.
Thank you. To reiterate, to HRC, we're sending ordinance 2026-11 if adopted. Ms. Hughes Candies,
Yes.
Ms. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Adkisson,
Yes.
Mr. Steinger,
Yes.
Ms. All,
nope.
Mr. Brooks,
No.
Deputy Mayor Smith,
Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Yes. No, sorry. No, my vote's no. I was thinking of the main motion.
with 6 yeas and 3 nays, motion passes.
All right, back to the motion as amended. Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. Let's see, item 4, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2026-14, an ordinance amending Title 85, Code relating to the board, definitions, harbor administration, and boat harbor regulations.
Are we done with the music show? Madam Manager.
Thank you. This ordinance amends Title 85 with largely administrative changes to Docks and Harbors Code to align it with updated decisions and definitions. There's a bulleted list of those in your packet that I will not read. We do have Port Director Yucatel in the audience for questions. I recommend you take public testimony and adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Manager, and you stole my thunder. Port Director Yucatel's in the audience if we have questions. Any member of the audience wish to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the Assembly. Ms. Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the Assembly adopt ordinance 2026-14, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. Next, let's take a brief 2-minute at ease. Sorry, I just had to confirm. Ms. Hughes-Gannis has left us for the evening. She had to take care of some other things, so. Okay, where were we? Item 5. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2025-02, lowercase b, uppercase a, an ordinance transferring $1,050,000 of unspent Raleigh funds from Juneau School District to the City and Borough of Juneau, funding provided by Raleigh Special Revenue Fund.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Thank you. This ordinance returns just over $1 million to the CBJ General Fund. You had previously funded Raleigh after-school childcare services, and that program ceased operations in summer of 2025. And because those funds were restricted with the school district no longer providing that childcare, they could no longer spend those funds. So all this does is transfer the $1 million plus from their fund balance to CBJ fund balance, to general fund balance. I recommend the Assembly take public testimony and adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Manager. And we have Susan Clark signed up. Please come up and you please state your name and area of town you live in, and you have 2 minutes.
Fully prepared because I was working on the other.
That's okay.
Susan Clark, I live in the Flats. And back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, I was a leader in early child care, the need for child care. And I chaired the League of Women Voters study for for childcare that went up to the state, that the state then adopted. What concerns me about this particular money is that we have $1 million and daycare, or it's semantics, but to say, okay, you have $1 million that was for children and for daycare and for that kind of thing, and it's just going to go into the general fund, and it can go to the airport or the Tidelands or the gondola, whomever. I would like to see, and again, it's semantics, the 200,000, take it out of this million and give it to the Southeast Children's Collective. I know it's all going into general funds, but I would like it to go into something that is more meaningful, because we worked hard to get the money originally for Raleigh. So whether it goes to back to the school district in some way, whether it goes to food, whether it goes to human services, something that acknowledges that $1 million was earmarked and designated for early childcare. What we did back in the day was get daycare in state office buildings for the first time. We have daycare in federal building. So you get my drift.
Yes, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Clark? Go ahead, Ms. Hall.
Ms. Clark, did you realize that in our consent agenda, we appropriated up to $270,000 to the manager for a grant to Southeast Childhood Collective for Juneau's summer childcare programs? So I think that is very much on our radar.
It's just
Oh,
introduced.
sorry,
Yeah.
introduced. So that is on our radar.
And it's not just we also give almost $2 million in childcare, but anyway.
I realize you give that to them, but to put it into the general fund where it could go anywhere, I would like to see it designated coming out of that and going into that. I'd like to see it designated into something that is different than buying a building or Tidelands or something.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony today. With that, we'll bring it back to the assembly. Mr. Steiningerster.
I move the assembly adopt ordinance 2025-02BA and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection, Ms. Wall?
For a question, thank you, Madam Mayor. I get Ms. Clark's point. I think lots of other people will be making that same point to us. But operationally, it does need to go back to general fund. It needs to be de-appropriated before it's reappropriated. Is that correct? That technically, although we can take that money and do something else with it in the future, we still need this ordinance, even if we choose to do that.
Thank you, Assemblymember Wall. Yes, the funds need to go back to their original funding source, which is in this case, general fund.
Remove my objection.
Thank you. Any further objection or any objection? Seeing none, so moved. Item 6, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2025-01, lowercase b, uppercase a, c, an ordinance appropriating $14,240 to the manager for the ramp improvements and remain overnight aircraft parking apron capital improvement project, funding provided by Airport Capital Reserve Funds.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Thank you. This appropriates $15,000 to replace failed motion sensors on light poles. I've learned 2 things about the airport this week. One is that anything that's on airport property is very, very expensive because it has to be FAA and approved, which is why you're seeing $15,000 for replacement motion sensors. And 2, an apron and a ramp, where these lights are located are the same thing. I recommend the Assembly take public testimony and adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Manager, and you also learned what FTC stood for. Any member of the public wish to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the Assembly. Ms. Hall.
I move the Assembly adopt ordinance 2025-01, lowercase b, uppercase AC, and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. Item 7, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2025-01, lowercase b, uppercase AD, an ordinance appropriating $898,000 to the manager for the purchase of 8 paratransit buses, funding provided by the United States Department of Transportation, Federal Transit Administration.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Thank you. This $900,000 in grant funding allows us to replace 8 of our paratransit buses. Those are the short buses that are from 2018. Those are very well used and meeting end of life. We are required to have a 20% match, and we have those funds appropriated in the transit fleet reserve. I recommend the Assembly take public testimony and adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the Assembly. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2025-01, lowercase b, uppercase AD, and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that ordinance passes. Item 8, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance 2025-01, lowercase b, uppercase AE, an ordinance appropriating $654,819 to the manager and de-appropriating $1,444,278 from the manager for the terminal construction capital improvement project funding provided by airport funds.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Thank you. So this ordinance is a little bit of a funding shuffle. It is reminiscent of the rally funding, where all funds have to go back to their original source. So if you recall, when we talked with the airport board at our joint meeting, they had this terminal construction project that had multiple funding sources. And because that project was coded to grant funding and bond funding, the sales tax that had also been appropriated to it needs to be returned to the general fund. So that is what this ordinance does. I recommend you take public testimony and adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Any member of the public wish to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the Assembly. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move ordinance 2025-01, lowercase b, uppercase AE, and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that ordinance passes. No unfinished business, so we'll go to new business. And since we probably have some new people that haven't dealt with it, regulation, Madam Attorney, you want to talk about what we do with regulations from our empowered boards?
Sure. So regulations are covered under Title I, 016260. So when we get regulations, you may approve or disapprove. You may not amend them. If you disapprove of a regulation, what you actually are doing is directing me to present a new ordinance or resolution that you can then amend. But today what you are doing is a yes or a no, and with a bring back something different. So those are your options, no amending.
All right, thank you for that, Madam Attorney. So item 1, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Regulation amendments, JNU Airport Title VII rates and fee updates FY 2027.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This regulation change decreases rates in the fuel flowage fees at the airports, and with a corresponding increase in security screening fees and terminal leases to offset those decreases. The airport board held public meetings on this and had it open for public comment and received no public comment. I recommend the Assembly approve this change to regulation.
Thank you, Madam Manager. And before we go to public comment, I just wanted to say that we appreciate former Airport Board Jody Garza trying to point out the incorrect fuel flowage fees, and we are sorry that it just took us a while to recognize that. So with that, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this ordinance or regulation? Seeing none, we'll go to the assembly. It's back to you, Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the Assembly approve regulation amendment Juneau Airport Title 07 rates and fees update and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, those are approved. Item 2, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Regulation amendments, Docks and Harbors Title V Omnibus Updates 2026.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Thank you. These changes are recommended to provide greater clarity to patrons, update definitions, and align current procedures. Beyond that, I would defer to Port Director Yucatil if you have any questions. I recommend the Assembly approve this change to regulation.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to these regulations? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the Assembly. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we approve Docks and Harbors Title 05 Omnibus Update 2026 and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, those regulations are approved. Thank you for being here, Mr. Port Director. Item 3, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Airport Board requests ARF, Airport Rescue and Firefighting Truck Lease Funding.
Madam Manager.
Thank you. This is a little bit of an oddity on your agenda, and frankly, I'm not sure that it belongs here. So I am going to highlight it and then maybe ask that we procedurally do something different next time. So one of your empowered boards, the Airport Board, made a motion on March 12th for you to consider the reimbursement of $162,000 for of sales tax back to the airport for the purpose of their leasing of an ARF truck. I think that the best way for the boards is to communicate to you via email, and we have certainly recommended this in the past. So maybe if we could get our liaisons to let the boards know that normally the communication like this would come as a memo to you through your email. And then that just helps keep that precedent going. But it is before you as just an informational item on the agenda today.
So we don't have to do anything with this, or are we actually acting on the motion? 2-minute recess.
Okay.
Ladies, Madam Attorney.
Thank you. So normally it would come as an email or a memo. You would then say, do we want to do something with this or do we not? So it's been noticed on your agenda. You can do something with it tonight, or you can decline to take any action at this point. That's your first decision.
Okay, so to do something is, are we voting on it, or are we directing staff to do an appropriate ordinance?
Right, you would be directing staff to do an appropriating ordinance
All right.
or transfer.
Ms. Wall's volunteering to, no, just kidding. Yeah, Ms. Wall has a question. So let's go with questions first because it's a little bit different.
I was just going to provide some context as the liaison a little bit. This came out of, when the airport realized that they were going to have to, deappropriate quite a bit of sales tax funds that had been appropriated for the terminal project because they did not need those funds. I think they were, feeling like in the spirit of the voters, can they have some of this funding back? Not to put words in their mouth, but so that's where this came from. Obviously, this is a priority, but I'm not gonna advocate either way for it. If we want to move something forward to a final vote later, that's okay with me,
Are
but
you willing to make the motion to make the appropriate?
it looks like
ordinance?
Miss
Okay.
Atkinson wants to, so.
Go ahead, Ms. Atkinson.
I'm actually going to move that we take no action tonight because I think this is not an ideal way for this to come forward. I very much appreciate Ms. Wall giving context, but I think that without the manager and the attorney having full context and understanding and ready to answer questions, this is not something we should be taking action on tonight. And so I think we can bring it back around through more official channels.
Well, the only way to do that would be to have staff draft an appropriating ordinance. Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will move that we direct staff to bring us back an appropriating ordinance for this. I don't know why I'm doing that, but so that we can talk about it more. Is that what people want?
Yeah.
And send it to the Finance Committee when there's room on the agenda.
All right. Do we have objection? Ms. Atkinson?
We've got a lot on the finance agenda. I'm gonna object. We don't have, we certainly can request this, but we don't have to make that decision tonight. And if it's something that we decide we want to take up later, we can, but I'm just not feeling like that's something we need to do right now.
Mr. Kelly?
Didn't Ms. Atkinson already make a motion and we haven't dispensed with that?
It was, she
Oh,
did not
okay.
make a formal motion. She just
All right.
said her opinion.
Thanks for
when
the
I asked
clarification.
questions, yes. Okay. Okay, let's not lose sight of where we are because we still have an executive session. So Ms. Wall has a motion for an appropriate ordinance for $162,000. Ms. Atkinson has objection. Let's, Madam Clerk, call roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Wall,
Yes.
Ms. Atkinson,
No.
Mr. Steininger,
No.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Brooks,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Smith,
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Yes. And just remember that if we bring an ordinance for it, doesn't mean you have to vote for it when it comes, but
Motion carries 6 yeas, 2 nays.
all right. Thank you for that, Madam Clerk. Any staff reports, Madam Manager?
No.
Okay, we're gonna be quick with the assembly reports, hopefully. For the mayor's report, I just hope everybody had a nice Easter. And we'll be looking forward to everybody not stealing Ms. Wall's thunder for spending a quality time with everybody on Saturday. So with that, we'll go through our committee reports. Mr. Smith, Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the Committee of the Whole, we discussed a downtown parking taxation type of idea. That should be coming back to us at another point. Also, a discussion on the disposal of the existing city hall. And I'm sure there was something else, but I can't remember what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Wall.
Thank you,
have
Madam
a
Mayor.
Busy spring.
Yep, everyone was at the last AFC, so I'll skip that. But our next one is not on Wednesday. We do not have a finance committee meeting this Wednesday. We are meeting at 10:30 here on Saturday. There will be a packet with some material in it, so definitely keep that in mind because normally you got the weekend to read things, and so you may want to make sure you get a chance to check it out whenever it shows up. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. That was quick. Let's see here. Who is next? Ms. Huskanis is gone, so we'll go to Public Works. Ms. Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Steininger generously chaired the last Public Works meeting because I was not feeling well, but we had the 6-year CIP on there, as well as the Salmon Creek water outage and microtransit. And because unlike finance, I'm very nice, we're actually going to be canceling the next Public Works meeting, so.
You're a great chair. Mr. Kelly, Human Resources.
Thank you. We didn't appoint anybody or recommend any appointments today. We did discuss an amendment to assembly procedure brought forward by Mr. Brooks that would change how the default for public testimony in committee meetings, and we have referred that on to committee of the whole. Mr. Smith, you're welcome. I know I do have a backlog going there. And let's see. Oh, and we did also discuss the next dates for empowered board meetings. So right now we're looking at June 20th through 21st, and we would be making appointments to the airport, docks and harbors, and Eagle Crest boards. So if you can give me feedback on your calendar, either now or at a future point.
Okay.
I do not think those were the dates.
Oh, all right. Sorry. Let me double check.
10th and
Madam
11th,
Clerk,
I
will you-
believe.
I think Madam Clerk is right. It is 10th and 11th.
So June 10th and 11th. Okay. Possibility.
The visitor industry task force is during lunch, correct? Okay. All right.
Okay, so that narrows it right down. So with that, thank you for that. So speaking of the BIDF, who wants to report on that? Ms. Atkinson?
I was not here for that last one. I
Mr.
believe
Steininger,
Mr. Steininger chaired that because I was up the hill a little ways.
So what did we talk about at the last FIDF? It was flight. Yes, we had 2 meetings in a row, back to back, week to week, on flight scene, discussing noise from flight scene, getting a lot of information about what the actual regulations that we have power over as a city. Got briefing from several different stakeholders, from the federal government to the FAA, or the Forest Service, FAA, as well as our airport staff.
Perfect. And Mr. Smith, I don't know if you were in town for Title 49?
I was. I can do you want me to do my liaison updates?
Well, that's still a city committee.
Oh, sure. So I think I updated everyone on the Title 49 committee at our last meeting, I believe. We're having another Title 49 advisory committee on Thursday of this week at noon. And the main focus will be to review a proposed change to the table of permissible uses.
Yep. Sounds good. Okay, is that all the joint facilities? Mr. Steininger, we've been meeting a lot lately.
Yeah, we had a joint facilities meeting. We had a robust discussion on maintenance of JSD, Juneau School District facilities, where they get funding from, how much funding is available. Had a brief discussion on their bond package that they had put forward last year to this body. We are going to have them do some updates and then hopefully take action at a meeting on the 20th of this month that members should see scheduled onto their calendar soon.
Thank you for that. Okay, now committees, liaison reports, and comments and questions. Ms. Wall, we'll start with you.
CRAC has not met since we last met. They meet tomorrow here. And the airport board did meet, but major note I had was what you all saw tonight in new business in terms of their request to the assembly.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The school board has been meeting, and it seems like they've reached agreements for both support staff and educators, and they're just finalizing them. The Commission on Sustainability has canceled the last couple meetings, but I think we have a work session coming up here in the next week or two. And then the local emergency preparedness hasn't had a recent meeting. I think there's been one or two since I've been the liaisons.
All right, thank you, Ms. Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Travel Juneau Board met this last week. There were a few things they discussed, but mainly they were discussing what their budget would look like with a 30% reduction. So that's going to be a fun discussion.
There you go. Thank you for that, Mr. Steininger.
Eagle Crest met last week after our finance committee meeting. As you might expect, most of the conversation was around the instruction that we gave them. But High Point, the initial numbers for March look to be the most profitable March in recorded history for Eagle Crest because of all the great snow that we've had. So that's good news. You know, so it's not all doom and gloom over there.
Thank you for that. Ms. Hall, continue the pattern.
Yeah,
Happy
so
news.
JEDC met March 9th, and you know, director's report had information on the summer trades program update, update on the rural health transformation fund program, the big beautiful bill. The applications have gone, or the letters of intent have gone in. And then Docks and Harbors met on the 26th, and much of what was discussed we touched on tonight in our agenda packet. So that's it.
Thank you for that. Okay, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you.
Positive and brief.
I'll try. The positive point is that I am no longer being ghosted by CSWA. So I guess the bad news is they've been meeting since at least February or maybe even before that. But their next meeting is April 10th, and I will be at that. Juneau Commission on Aging was graced by former Assembly Member Hall, who talked about housing. And I have the updated date for Downtown Business Association meeting on my calendar, so I will not be missing that. That is my mostly good news report.
Thank you for that, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Planning Commission met a couple of weeks ago. They approved one variance and denied a second one. Those, I guess, supported or aligned with the staff recommendations for actions on those variances. Just FYI, when there are non-administrative variances being requested, they do have criteria to look at. And they evaluated that and found, again, in one case, the criteria like enforcement of the ordinance would create an undue hardship resulting from the unusual or special conditions of the property. You know, in some cases that was met, and then the other, which they denied, the staff found that was not met. Anyway, just update on those. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So we don't have any presiding officer reports. Any continue, Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to add agenda item to the next COW meeting to discuss actions that could affect Telephone Hill development or the timeline. And I can speak to that if you'd like.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I think that discussing the options for pausing the RFB until we have responses from the RFQ or seeking avenues for partial or full disposal would be in the best interest of the community and, you know, the sake of finances for where we're at currently.
Thank you for that. I'm gonna look for the attorney. Is that a different motion than what we've already voted on? Is that a different enough motion?
It is.
Okay, thank you. So you've heard a motion. Is there objection? Ms. Agason and then Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While legally it is different enough from what we voted on to be permissible, I do feel that we have voted on this and very similar issues many times at this point, and at this point, no new information has come forward that would, you know, change my calculations. And I know that the COW has quite a bit on its plate, and I don't really want to rehash old ground when we have other things we need to deal with. So I'll be objecting.
Thank you. Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Procedurally, I would support this if there was someone who was changing their vote, but coming from someone who has been consistent and not seeing 5 votes Otherwise, then I don't know why I would support this. Thank you.
Mr. Steininger.
Objecting for a question. The RFP that's currently out, can you remind me what is the date for respondents to send in their proposals?
We will open that April 27th.
April 20 is when they're due, or we open?
That's when we.
Oh, we
open.
haven't opened it.
No, we just advertised on Saturday. So we're soliciting bids right now.
Currently soliciting. And follow up.
Go ahead.
For the attorney, if we took action at the next committee of the whole, canceled the RFP, is there any claim to bid prep costs that potential proposers could come back to us for?
Thank you for the question. So sometimes I haven't actually seen the bid, so I'll turn to the manager. Sometimes there are costs associated with it, but if we cancel, we return all of those costs typically to the proposers. So they may put up a bond or something as part of their proposal. But I haven't seen it, the bid itself.
Mr. Steininger, now you've got me confused. Try it again.
Maybe a clarifying question. So when I did state procurement, occasionally when there's a controversy with a proposer, you would have to pay for the cost they had incurred in preparation of their bid. I've seen it happen a couple of times, and I'm curious how that works at the city level. My experience is only at the state. So the costs they actually incur in putting their bid together.
In my experience, they're eligible for that claim if they are not the winning bidder and they protest the bid. The kind of the damages that we owe them is bid preparation costs, which are not, I mean, while they're meaningful, are relatively small in comparison to the bid. I have not seen it where you guys cannot award a bid. So let's say the bid came and on May 18th, which is the next meeting after that, and you said, nope, we're not going to award that bid. I have not seen awarding any damages to the preparer of an unsuccessful bid, either because the city canceled it or the assembly didn't award it. We can certainly do some more research, but that has been my experience as engineering and public works director.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to speak to this? Okay, we'll go to Ms. Hall and then Mr. Smith and then back to you, Mr. Brooks.
Oh, gosh. I guess my concerns, I guess this would be an objection. My concerns is since we last touched on it, there's even been more public outcry, and I'm just, could we modify the bid for partial demolition? Or is that, this is really hard, but I don't know that we're ready to go full steam ahead.
Madam Attorney.
So if you want to make any changes to the bid, Mr. Brooks' motion is what would allow you to do that. You have to stop the current bid and then tell us what you want to do. So a new bid, if any, would be sent out.
All right, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll support this motion for now. I mean, interesting to see if there's 5 people who want to discuss and bring it to the committee of the whole. We have some room on the agenda. I wasn't at the last committee of the whole where there was action taken on, some possible changes to timeline or development, but I'll support it just due to the, we know the strain on the treasury, we know the costs after, getting the gondola cost, my risk tolerance and concern for, moving forward without having better senses on the price has gone down. That being said, we will see if there's 5 votes to have this discussion, and if there's 5 votes for any different way forward. It's a challenge, and I think staff has done a good job trying to make it as smooth as possible, but and all changes will have impacts to possible development, but I'll support at least having the discussion. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'll object for purposes of a question. When is the next cow? Because I know there's one on the 13th, but I thought we were trying to not have that one because we have the 11th and the 15th.
You are correct that the 13th is the next committee of the whole, and you are correct. We have the all-day budget retreat on the 11th and then a listening session on April 15th.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, well, I'll speak. At this time, while it kills me to do this, I would support the motion because I have an idea that I need to run by everybody anyway, so I'll be bringing an idea. So, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just want to clarify, this isn't to kill the RFB or that there would not be any RFB whatsoever. You know, it's whether or not it would be the best interest of our decision making and within the community to wait till we had gotten the response from the RFQ to see how complex an RFB might need to be made, or if how it's written is totally encompassed to what someone's willing to do for it. So it's, you know, I've said it multiple times, it's like there definitely will be some type of development, but I'd like to know what people are willing before we try and preface it with a desire that might not be as achievable.
All right, thank you for that. So we have a motion and objection. Madam Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Brooks,
Yes.
Ms. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Steininger,
Yes.
Ms. Atkisson,
No.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Wall,
No.
Deputy Mayor Smith,
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Motion carries with 6 yeas and 2 nays.
All right, with that, and then so we'll put it on the record. We have Soldotna in the house. Anyway, continuation of public participation on non-agenda items. Any comment there? Soldotna want to comment? All right, with that, thank you ladies for coming. We'll say hi briefly, then we're going to kick you out because we have an executive session. So with that, Mr. Smith, will you move us into executive session?
Sure, Madam Mayor. I move that the Assembly enter into executive session to discuss collective bargaining negotiations, the immediate knowledge of which would adversely affect the finances of the municipality, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Any public object to us going in public session, into executive session, sorry. Seeing none, any member of the Assembly object to us going into executive session? Seeing none, we will go in executive this session in 5 minutes. And we will not be returning.